You know, niggas gotta get their priorities together. Got their mind on the wrong things, spending their money in the wrong way.
Trapaholics, real trap shit.
Say you need that car with the rims and a trunk, just like Jim. It's more than life. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Talk to him.
Say you need that LV bag with the belt and the hat.
That's all you got though.
It's more than life. Yeah.
Talk to him. Real.
Say you wanna turn up at the club, like some bottles, impress them girls. It's more than life.
Fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And who dat? And we are back. We are back with some more main course for you. And I'm talking about the Saints. Once again, a close loss. You know, a nail biter down all the way to the end. A heart attack waiting to happen every Sunday. That's what you've gotten from the Saints the first 2 weeks of the season. But yeah, what we had here was a 26-21 loss for the New Orleans Saints. So now they're sitting at 0-2 on the season. And honestly, I felt like if the Saints won this, and I felt that they could win this because the 49ers were dealing with a lot of injuries, but at the same time, the Saints were dealing with just as many injuries, maybe not at quite key positions, but if fully healthy, the 49ers were supposed to be head and shoulders more talented, better roster, possibly Super Bowl contender. So I think it evened out a little bit and maybe even kind of leaned over into the Saints' favor with the injuries, and that doesn't happen very often. This is one of the first games in a while where the Saints have maybe coming into this and not being the more injured team. But because it ended up coming down to a one-score game, the Saints had the ball multiple times at the end with a chance to maybe tie or take the lead, but just couldn't do it. And I felt if the Saints actually did somehow pull off this win and won this game, I felt that was going to make me feel a lot more upset about the loss against the Arizona Cardinals last weekend, week one, because it would have made it feel like, oh man, well, like we had such a good chance to win that game. We had the ball at the end and had a chance to at least tie or maybe go for a 2-point conversion and win the game. And so it's just sickening. Feel kind of hollow inside, knowing that the Saints could just as easily as they are 0-2 could be 2-0 right now. So that's frustrating. And then you kind of already talked about it. You look at the teams that are set ahead of them. You know, you got to go all the way to the West Coast to Seahawks, and you got to go all the way to the Northeast Coast for the Bills, and just doesn't look like you're going to find a win too soon before you're running into that stretch where you play like the Giants and the Chicago Bears and the Patriots. So the Saints could easily be 0-4, 0-5 by the time they get into an opportunity again where it looks like maybe they have a chance of winning. But that it's just frustrating because it felt like every opportunity was there and that they should have won that game. But let's get into this a little bit more. We'll go through kind of the stats, and then we'll get to your MVPs and hot takes, and really the final thoughts on what our pick was and what it ended up turning out to be. But anyways, let's get into this. So can I get a menu? And so the first thing is Spencer Rattler played even better. Like, who really would have thought that he'd have been able to play even better than he did last week against the Arizona Cardinals? Definitely playing a team that's injured or I would say has a better defense. Like, yeah, they talked a lot coming into this game. We got the 49ers being injured and stuff, but most of that was on offense. Most of it was offensively. Like, their defense was completely healthy. Like, I'd have loved if the Saints had a healthy Nick Bosa on their team or a healthy Fred Warner on their team. So their defense was just fine. But for Spencer Rattler to have a pretty impressive day, the thing that really just kills me about some of the first couple weeks that we've seen of him is that, yeah, he throws it a bunch, probably throwing it really more than he should. Like he threw it what almost 50 times in week one, and then he's thrown it 34 times this week, which I really would like to see them maybe bring that down to 30 or 25 and maybe try to run the ball a little bit more because even with them throwing so much, which I understand every game so far, the last 2 weeks they've gotten down in them what 10 and 11 points. So I understand you're behind, but even with him throwing it as much as he does, he doesn't get like a ton of yards. So he completed 25 of 24 passes, but only for 27 yards and six point, which is a 6.1 average, which just that's just not good enough, you know. Had 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, but then he kind of went kind of back to what he was in preseason and what he was in 2024 because the 49ers were able to get to him 3 times and they brought him down for 3 sacks for a 21-yard loss, and then his quarterback rating was 118.1 and then the QBR of 57.4, which neither one of those are terrible. Those are actually pretty good. You know, it's just the average per attempt and then the sacks, you know, he kind of went back to that. But I mean, I can kind of understand that, you know, it's a closeout window in a game where a team has the lead, where the other team needs a touchdown to at least tie or win. And you just got a speed rusher, one of the best in the league, and an all pro and Nick Bosa going against either Kelvin Benjamin or Kelvin Banks Jr. or Talisi Fuaga, or they even had him moving him inside a couple times on Cesar Ruiz because he's kind of struggled all year. So they knew where to get the best matchups for uh for Nick Bosa. But that was a passing game. The running game is what I love to see in a lot. Really got me excited in this game. I'm a little annoyed that they kind of feels like they stole a 100-yard rushing game from Alvin Kamara because when I first early on looking at these stats and these box scores, it was showing that he had 100 yards rushing, but now it's showing that he has 21 carries for 99 yards with a 4.7 average and with no touchdowns and just a long of 15. And then you had Spencer Rattler had 14 yards off of 4 carries, and Kendra Miller had 5 carries off of 8 yards. No one else could really get anything going. We didn't see Devin Neal this time. But what I loved about this game is that they were actually able to run the ball. This felt like one of the first games in a long time where the Saints were able to run the ball. They were able to run the ball, but they were able to stop the run in the same game. So that they were able to do it in the same game was pretty crazy to me because they were able to hold Christian McCaffrey to just 13 carries for 55 yards, which was a 4.2 average, but was able to keep him scoreless without a rushing touchdown, and only had a long of 10. And then you had just Brian Robinson had kind of added 6 more carries for 20 yards, which is a 3-point average and no touchdowns and just a long of 7. So that the Saints were able to run the ball and able to stop the run in the same game. If nothing else, if you're looking for some encouragement, that's where I could find some encouragement is that the Saints running game on both sides on offense and defense looked respectable for the first time in a little while and respectable in the same game for the first time in a little while. So you got that. So that accounts for the defense being at least a little bit better than they were last week, which they were actually low key, sneaky good last week against the Cardinals. It was just the fact that they really only allowed 100 yards rushing, but they also allowed a 50-yard rush to add to it. So then a 100-yard rushing day for a defense is pretty respectable, but you throw in that 50-yard touchdown run that just throws everything off. All right, and on to receiving. Spencer Rattler did a pretty good job spreading it around, got it to 7 different wide receivers. His main targets were Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Juwan Johnson, and Alvin Kamara. Chris Olave had 6 catches for 54 yards on a nine per average, no touchdowns, 14-yard long, and 10 off of 10 targets. And then you had Rashid Shaheed, who had 4 catches for 52 yards with an average of 13, with 1 touchdown, had a nice long ball of 39 yards, and that was just off of 5 targets. Feels like you kind of, if you're wanting to get the ball down the field a little bit more, need to maybe target Rashid Shaheed a little bit more than you're targeting Juwan Johnson and Chris Olave. At least that's kind of what I've noticed in these first 2 weeks. And then Juwan Johnson, who brought the drops from the Cardinals with him, from the Cardinals game with him, because he had 5 catches for 49 yards, which was a 9.8 average. Had the crazy touchdown, like in the around near the pylon. Had a crazy touchdown that was off of his long of 18, and that was off of 9 targets. But he had two drops early in this game that maybe could have kept some drives going, or maybe been able to pick up some third and longs, or kept them out of some third and longs. So Juwan Johnson brought that with him. You could say maybe Chris Olave kind of brought it with him too, and they brought that with them for like the first entire half. They cleaned it up a little bit in the second half, but they need to go through a whole game clean, to where maybe they just have like 1 drop or something. Can't be having this where there's 3, 4, 5 drops in a game that are early in the game, or maybe even later in the game, to where they cost you at least potential to pick up a first down, or maybe get in range to where you can maybe actually get a field goal, get some points. And then you had Alvin Kamara had 6 catches off of 6 targets for 21 yards, which was just a 3.5 average. The thing that really hurt the Saints on one of the targets to Alvin Kamara was on a pass that looked like it probably should have just been either a catch and down, which is I think what they ruled it originally, and then they were looking to rule whether it was just an incomplete, and then they throw the red flag, and next thing you know, Alvin Kamara's fumbled inside the red zone, as the Saints are just down. They were just down 16-14, and that was getting pretty close to what my prediction was. I was thinking that maybe maybe the final score would be like 16-17, so that they were already in range. The 49ers already had the 16 points, which is kind of hard to do, because their kicker had to miss an extra point to make it 16 until 17. So I was pretty pumped up at that point, where the Saints had the ball, were down they were just down just 2 points and on the move. And man, that was a backbreaker by Alvin Kamara there, possibly the what led to them losing the game, or you could maybe even say Chris Olave's couple drops on those first 2 drives in the end zone. Had one kind of high and behind him a little bit, but still hit him like right in the hands, and then he had another one that was low and behind him while he was running close to the inside to the end zone, and just looked like he just didn't expect the ball to come to him. Didn't look like he looked for it. Looked like if he looked for it or expected it to come to him, he should have been able to reach down by his side and catch it. So, yeah, the Saints missed out on some early opportunities in this game to get some scores, to make it to where this game shouldn't really have been close. Like, they felt like they came out really fast and had a lot of energy, and knew like their first 15, 20 plays, but they ran those 15, 20 plays and got no points out of them, even though they got the ball first, and their defense was able to get a stop on their first possession against the 49ers. So that it felt to me as if, man, the Saints really should have had a 10-0 lead before the 49ers got any points at all, but just came away scoreless and on those first 2 drives. And before I leave him out, because he did score a touchdown, Devon Vele scored the touchdown that got the Saints to 21 points. And it was what we want. That's what we drafted him, or that's what we traded for him for, is to be a red zone, a goal line threat. And that's exactly what he was. He used his 6'4", 6'5" body to body out and like football or not basketball, guard him out and just use his big body, and just caught a 3-yard touchdown pass. And he only had one target for the 3 yards. But I was saying last week, if Dwan Bailey isn't going to be hardly doing anything at all, I'm gonna get me pretty upset about the fourth round pick they gave away for him. But hey, if he can get four more touchdowns like that, then hey, the fourth round pick was worth giving up then. And then just defense, you had a couple defenders that uh, were had the spotlight on them and looked good, but there are some other ones that looked a little rough in some of their play. Demario Davis, that was kind of a vintage performance from him. He had 11 total tackles with 5 solo. Uh, Also, the second highest tackler in this game was rookie getting his start at safety. Jonas Sanker had 8 total tackles with 5 solo. And then you had Isaac Yadam was third in tackles in this game, but it wasn't because he was playing well. He was getting beat and and having to be felt like he was like the last wave of defense on some plays, and it just looked like they were picking on Isaac Yadam, who played for them last year. So maybe they were aware of his playing style and the type of player Isaac Yadam was. But if I see him play like that too many more times, where he's given up these third and longs, it felt like they gave up like 3 or 4 plays where they were like in 3rd and 13, and they just gave it up either by penalty or just getting beat in coverage. But Isaac Yadam had 7 catches for and with 6 solo and 1 tackle for loss. And then Carl Granderson, arguably your best defender for the day, definitely off of statistics. He definitely had one of the better days. You had Carl Granderson, who had 7 total tackles, 5 solo with the 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and then no pass deflections or anything like that. You had Chris Rump, who had probably the biggest defensive play of the day, like positive defensive play of the day for the Saints. He had just two total tackles, 2 solo, but he had a strip sack, tackle for loss, and the quarterback hit that was, I think that fumble was actually recovered by Demario Davis. And I'm trying to see. The position that Isaac Yadam is in this week is the position that Kool-Aid McKinstry was in last week, where he was getting picked on by Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. You didn't have that. You didn't get Kool-Aid McKinstry getting picked on quite as much in this game. So you say that was an improvement, but he had a terrible penalty in this game where it was on third and long, and then it was illegal hands to the face. And like by the time the flag came out of the ref's pocket, hell, both special teams units were already out on the field. So that was a very frustrating. And I don't really, if you saw the replays of it, didn't really look like there was a whole lot there within like the first 5 yards of, I guess, contact up under the chin, I guess. But that was a back-breaking penalty, which ended up leading, I think, just like 1 or 2 more plays later, they had a strike in the passing game, and then that got them down into the range where they were able to get 3 points off of it. So that penalty cost the Saints 3 points. And then Pete Warner, also just mentioning him because he got burned in coverage against Juwan Johnson, not Juwan Johnson, but Juwan Jennings, who we thought was possibly going to be not even play in this game, but ended up having the best game offensively for the 49ers. Had 5 catches for 49 yards, which is a 17.8 yard average, with 1 touchdown, and then that 42-yard touchdown against Pete Warner off of 10 targets. But Pete Warner, he had 5 tackles with five solo, and one tackle for loss, and even it's makes you sick there. He did, even with him getting burned in pass defense like that, he did actually have 2 pass deflections, but not when it counted, not when you really needed it. And then kick return, Kendra Miller had 3 for 82 yards with an average of 27.3 with 34 long. Rashid Shaheed had two punt returns for 23 yards, 11.5 average with a pretty impressive 19 yard return on one of them, where he was able to get around the edge, where the defenders, he was kind of running kind of sideways, but it was able to turn the corner and pick up 19 yards, which was pretty impressive. And then Blake Groupie, like once again, like I was so backing him during the off season, training camp, preseason. Like I just thought, like there's like you, depending on how bad they're talking about this team, they're acting as if like maybe Blake Groupie may be the best player on the team because they're so lacking of talent everywhere. And so far, he's been terrible, missing these under 40-yard field goals that should be chip shots and are backbreakers in these games. Like if he makes this field goal, made the field goal earlier, which would have put them at 24. It would have put them 24-26. Then at the end of the game, they would have only needed to go and where did they start that drive? Like on their own 5-yard line. They'd only needed to. It would have been a lot easier to only go like 60 yards than 95 yards if they were able to get in field goal range, and they could have won this game 27-26. But no, you got Blake Groupie out here missing chip shot field goals. Anything under 50 yards today for NFL kickers should be like automatic, and you should never miss an extra point, which he at least was 3 for 3 on. And you gotta give Spencer Rattler some credit for being 3 for 3 in the red zone there with those 3 touchdown passes. And then Kyle Kroger had a little bit of a step back after we kind of gave him our player of the week for special teams because he was 4 for 171, which was just an average of 52.8 with 1 touchback and then 1 inside the 20 and a long of 52. But that touchback was terrible because that was on a play where they ended up having to punt like at midfield, so that he punted it in the end zone was terrible. Like he should have been able to at least get them inside the 20 on that. So that was a terrible punt. So Kyle Kroger took a bit of a step back from the encouraging performance that he had in week 1 against Arizona. Had some not so great punts. And then before I get away from Blake Groupie, who's doing the kickoffs as well, the Saints come out with the 49ers getting the ball first on offense, and then he just goes right out there and gets a penalty for not kicking it into the landing zone. And the ball comes out to the 40-yard line, like first thing to start the second half for the 49ers. Thankfully, the Saints defense was able to keep them from getting any points there. But man, when you're starting, even with starting at 35-yard line where you kick it into the end zone for a touchback on kickoffs, it's just so devastating because heck, it only takes like 40-50 yards and boom, they're like in field goal range already. So that's your statistics. So now we'll go over the MVPs real quick, and then we'll get into some hot takes here. So for my MVP, who I was wanting to be my player of the game in this game. I picked Chris Olave. I was hoping that Chris Olave, he made it through the game against the Arizona Cardinals. So maybe it showed that maybe his confidence will be a little bit better, and took a couple hard hits in the game against the Arizona Cardinals. So maybe he'll have some more confidence, and he'll play a little more freely coming in this game against the 49ers. So I was hoping to see Chris Olave get. I didn't specify on how many catches or a touchdown or anything, but I was wanting him to just get 100 yards. 100 yards would have been nice and would have been enough for me, but he wasn't able to do that, and no other receiver was able to get close to that either. But he had 6 catches for 54 yards, a 9 per catch average, no touchdowns, just a long of 14 off of 10 targets. So I mean, Spencer Rattler was definitely targeting him, but there was a couple, like I said, there was 2 opportunities there in the end zone on the Saints' first drive that should have been a touchdown. So he dropped a touchdown and then wasn't paying very close attention to the ball coming to him on plays that should have been a touchdown. Which, if the Saints had that extra 7 points there, they'd have won this 28-26, but didn't get that. So Chris Olave let me down there a little bit on being my MVP for this game. And there was a couple times where Chris Olave looks like he's like shell shocked, or he's got PTSD from taking those hits, because there was a couple of those catches where he caught them and there was like no one around him, and it looked like he'd been able to pick up another 5-10 yards of yards after catch, and he just slides and falls down to the ground, which was very odd to me, which they mentioned that pre and post game about the field, the turf being slick, and leading to people like slipping and falling. And on that last offensive play on 4th down there, where Spencer Rattler ended up getting sacked, like when he tried to step up in the pocket, he slipped and then ended up leading to a strip sack and just turnover on downs. I think Cesar Ruiz recovered the fumble, but yeah, it was kind of funny about seeing just Spencer Rattler, Chris Olave, and then even some defenders. It seemed like some defensive ends sometimes when they'd be coming off the edge, they'd slip and slide and have to get back up on that play that Chris Rump got the strip sack. He like slipped, his feet slipped out from under him, but he was able to get back up and get after it. So that was impressive by Chris Rump on that play. But yeah, so because I can't pick Chris Olave, and also really can't pick Alvin Kamara, even though Alvin Kamara had 100 total yards from scrimmage in this game, almost had 100 yards rushing. But the fumble he had was just backbreaking. The Saints are just down, what, 14 to 16, and they're driving. They've scored on like their past 2 possessions or so, and looks like they're in possession and in drive, have it in drive to go right down the field and have a go ahead score. But instead, you got this weird catch where it gets caught like up behind Alvin Kamara, like up on his head, and it looks like it probably shouldn't have even been a catch, should have been an incompletion. But with the Saints' luck against fumbles against the 49ers, it shouldn't be any surprise. At least Saints and Alvin Kamara's luck against fumbles. Alvin Kamara has had 4 fumbles or 7 fumbles, only 7 fumbles in his career, but 4 of them have been by the 49ers, and 3 of them have involved Fred Warner. I think 2 of them he punched it out, and the other one he was the one wrapping him up as it got punched out. So yeah, Alvin Kamara. You could maybe say that Fred Warner is Alvin Kamara's son, is Alvin Kamara's dad. Alvin Kamara is Fred Warner's son. So yeah, would have loved to give it to Alvin Kamara. Would have loved to give it to Chris Olave, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and give it to Spencer Rattler. Who would have thought that in week 2, that not a pick, not me picking Spencer Rattler, but Spencer Rattler getting the award all on his own. So I'm giving it to Spencer Rattler, the only one with with the 3 touchdowns. He was 20 he was 25 of 34, which I think is like 73% completion percentage. But just the 207 yards, a 6.1 yard average. But we're really just highlighting the 3 touchdowns and that he had us on a drive and in a position at the end of the game, two opportunities, and got to shout out the defense too, giving them the chance. But that's the thing. Feels like with Spencer Rattler now being 0-8 in his career as a starter for the Saints. But man, it just feels like Spencer Rattler is like the king of almost wins, the king of almost comebacks. In 2024, he had the almost comeback against the Commanders, and then he had the 17-17 draw almost comeback against the Jaguars, and then just these past 2 weeks almost comes back with a drop against the Carolina Panthers, and then almost comes back against the San Francisco 49ers, but the offensive line just couldn't hold it together any longer. So it's just disappointing. I just want to see Spencer Rattler get a win, damn it, before he gets shot off into some black hole and we never hear or see from him anymore when he ever finally gets benched here. But yeah, he had the 3 sacks, lost for 21 yards with the fumble that ended up just being turnover on downs, which is just really disappointing. So kind of hard to pick an offensive player for this, but still had a nice rating of 118.1 and a QBR of 57.4. And you just can't just discount 3 touchdown passes and being 3-0 in the red zone for the day. It just sucks the way the game ended. So that's your offensive player of the game. Defensive player of the game, and I kind of want to pat myself on the back for this one because I didn't pick him. I usually only pick like one MVP before each game, and then I go over the player of the game for offense, defense, and special teams afterwards. But because I picked Carl Granderson last week as my MVP, and I think you could easily have given it to him or Cam Jordan because both of them had a sack and a half. But who would have expected that Carl Granderson to even one up the game that he had last week, because he had 7 total tackles with 5 solo, 2 assists, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and 3 quarterback hits. Like, come on now. And that has Carl Granderson easily on pace for double-digit sacks, but also has him in the lead, has him right there tied for the league in sacks with 3.5. He's like right there with guys like Myles Garrett and I can't remember who the other guys were, but yeah, he's right up there with a guy like Myles Garrett tied for 3.5 sacks on the season already. And I mean, obviously we don't expect him to keep this pace, but man, I would love for Carl Granderson to get 10 sacks, double-digit sacks. That would be awesome. So yeah, Carl Granderson, player of the game on defense for 2 weeks in a row now. Definitely, I'm not against that continuing to happen. But also like what I've seen out of Chris Rump too with the strip sack. That's something you rarely see in Saints defenses is strip sack. But you could maybe say that's because it was against Mac Jones, which that's kind of what makes this loss sting even a little bit more. But they had their chances, and that's what at least makes these games enjoyable to watch from start to finish. Is at least they're in it at the end. And then special teams, I really can't. I'm not applicable NA on special teams because your kicker was terrible. Your punter wasn't great. You didn't have any like real great returns. I maybe honorable mention, but I don't think I can actually crown his ass. I can give Rashid Shaheed kind of an honorable mention because he had a 19-yard punt return, but that's about it. No one else did anything. No one made any special teams like defensive plays or anything like that either. So this week, no one on special teams is getting it unless you just wanna hand it out to Rashid Shaheed, but that's about it. So there's your players of the games. Let's go through hot takes. So we actually thought the Saints got some pretty decent pressure on Kyler Murray last week, and were what, they were second or first in the league. I'm trying to think if there was a team that had six sacks last week. I know the Saints had five, which I think was either second or first in the league in sacks, and the Saints got decent amount of pressure on Kyler Murray, it looked like. So I was thinking, yeah, I think the Saints are, even without Chase Young, are going to be able to have a redo, a performance, an identical type of performance. Uh, but so I said, so for my hot take, I was expecting the Saints to get three sacks, at least three sacks in this game. And well, I mean, they did. They got their three sacks. They got the two from Carl Granderson and the strip sack one from Chris Rump. But really, I mean, after those three sacks, there really wasn't much pass rush at all. Like the sack stat in itself is great, but realistically, I think I'd rather have the consistent pressure because the Saints were getting murdered on third and long. So there was no pass rush on three or four of those times that they had the 49ers in like third and 13 and just gave it up. Just gave it up. Just wide had like receivers like wide open or like they're underneath and it's just kind of like a short throw underneath and then there's just like no one there that can run them down before they can get to the first down marker. But yeah, they gave up. They were more than 50% on third down against the 49ers. They were 8 for 15. Like that's disgusting. And I mean, I would think six of those 18 were like in long plays. Like it was like third and eight at least on six of those eight third down conversion. Like it had to have been at least third and six or third and eight. So yeah, not I got my hot take hit, but didn't hit quite as well as we'd have liked. We'd have liked there to be a little bit more pass rush, consistent pass rush, reliable pass rush, pressure, other than just the three sacks they got. But you can't say the hot take didn't hit, as it did. And at least we did get an exciting and a fun performance out of it from Carl Granderson. And like I said, you got a strip sack from Chris Rump that you hardly, that's a rarity. That's like an albino getting to see a strip sack from a Saints defensive lineman. And then the other one, the only other one I had was expecting, I expected Asim Richards to start in place of Fuaga and was kind of maybe just expecting Fuaga maybe to just be the emergency backup off the bench because it looked like he was coming into this game with a knee issue. But that didn't end up happening. We ended up getting Fuaga and Kelvin Banks Jr. In this game and for like the entirety of the game. And I thought Kelvin Banks and Fuaga both looked pretty good in this game. Obviously, they looked good in the run game because they were able to get Alvin Kamara almost exclusively 100 yards rushing, which that still ekes me that's not considered a 100-yard rushing game because you know how they have all these stats and stuff listed of like how many career 100-yard rushing games does Alvin Kamara have, and I swear first time I looked at these stats a couple times it said 100 yards that he had like right at 100 yards. They stole a 100-yard rushing game from him. But what I was trying to say about Fuaga and Banks is I thought they looked good in blocking the run, definitely in the run game blocking. They looked good and they were respectable and held their own for the entire majority of the game. It was just kind of like those last three drives that they had where I think it was on like maybe the last drive that the Saints had where Nick Bosa beat Fuaga for like a drive killing sack. And then at the end of the game, a 49ers defender pushed Kelvin Banks Jr. like into into Spencer Rattler's lap, causing him to like step up and trip and fumble and just the end of the game. So I thought even though Asim Richards, who I thought was healthier and maybe the better option because of his health, because it did look at times that like Fuaga could barely move that knee, and on plays where he'd get knocked down, it looked like he was having trouble getting just even getting back up. So for a guy like Nick Bosa and just what, Yaros Matos and those guys giving Fuaga a hard time. Honestly, with him being beat up and Kellen Banks Jr. being a rookie, the fact that they only gave up 3 sacks and just kind of a garbage sack at the end of the game too. Anyways, was still pretty impressive. So I thought they played well up until like the last 3 drives or so, even without my guy, my hot take guy, Asim Richards starting in place of Fuaga. I don't think it was necessarily necessary, but uh, I just hope that Fuaga is able to get that knee 100% right. I don't like seeing him as a statue just because it doesn't look like he can move. I think I'd rather have the healthier option than be watching that too much. But yeah, I thought the Saints offensive line, besides obviously the 3 sacks and just how they kind of crumbled the last drives where the Saints were trying to take the lead back. So those are the hot takes and player of the game. And then finally we kind of get to the pick and score. I think you guys kind of know because I feel upset and just kind of hollow inside because I was actually expecting the Saints to win this game. And now it feels like 2 weeks in a row the Saints had a chance to win and could have won last week, should have won this week. And man, you know, even with how the Saints won those games last year, like blowing out their opponents and were 2-0 last year. Like I think if the Saints were able to pull off like nail biters, heart attack games, I think I'd feel better about this team than I would have the team last year because I knew that the stuff like last year was just it was just camouflage, it was just masking what they really were. Like I'd feel more confident and feel better about the younger team getting these close victories and showing that they have that cardiac ability to win these close games. But so I picked the Saints to win this. So we're 1-1 on our picks now, and didn't get close to the score really. But I picked the Saints to win 17-16. So I expected them to get 17 points. So it's did better, impressive that they were able to score a little bit more than what I expected. But their defense wasn't able to keep quite enough points off the board. But you also can't say that they didn't give them a chance at the end of the game, which I was hoping this would be the other way around than what it was against the Cardinals last week. So I was thinking like, oh, the Saints are going to be in position in this game against the 49ers to keep them from being able to take the lead or tie the game, and the Saints are going to have a defensive stop to win the game. But no, the Saints ended up basically in the same exact type of position that they were in week 1 against the Cardinals, where their offense needs to make a play at the end of the game, and they just couldn't do it. It would have been nice for the Saints defense to have been in that position and make the game winning play, kind of like the 49ers did on those last 2-3 drives, getting those game crushing heartbreaking sacks to end drives and end the game essentially. So that's the game. That's the game. That's the Saints 26-21 lost against the 49ers, and now they've not shouldn't be too surprised by most people that the Saints are starting the season 0-2 and looks like they could easily be staring down 0-4, 0-5 start now. But hey, they're in tied possession right now with the New York Jets for the number 1 pick in the draft. So, I mean, you keep these competitive and at least enjoyable games to watch, and you get me all the way to next April or so, or I guess the end of the season, December 1st of January, and at least I've been entertained all the way up until then, and they end up with the first overall pick. I think I can deal with that. I can handle that. All right, so that was the game. There's just a few key little notes here and there, and then we'll try to get up out of here. So the Saints doing some more trading. The Saints have done a lot of trading for offensive linemen and for wide receivers, and the Saints trade here for another wide receiver here. But this trade was kind of odd, and I had to listen to some other news reports or some other podcasters before I understood this. I didn't really understand uh, why Jalen Polk was a second round pick last year and was getting traded to the Saints. I didn't realize that he had. I guess he had some character issues with the Patriots, and then he was already on IR. He's already done for the season, so he wasn't going to play in the 2025 season for us anyways. But I just thought it was a weird trade because hell, Jalen Polk, he had like a really good season for what Washington. He was like one of the number two wide receiver after Roman uh, Roman Odunze had like 1,100 yards receiving, like 70 catches his last year at college, and then he was a second round pick of the New England Patriots. That's who he was traded from, and he was almost a high second round pick, like almost a first rounder. He was like the 37th pick in the second round. So seeing that he was cut already had me scratching my head because I was like, what? But then I saw that he's already on IR, and that made a lot more sense as to why the Saints only traded, I think, what, a 2028 sixth and a 2028 seventh for him. So like, end of round picks that are future, like 2 years from now, 2 3 years from now. So that's interesting. I guess I've heard Kellen Moore talking about Devon Bailey, and then talking about Jalen Polk. It just sounds like they're guys that they like, and that they liked coming out of the draft, and that they liked once they got drafted. And man, they're using a lot of draft capital on these wide receivers. So that's what, like a seventh and a fourth for Bailey, and then a sixth and a seventh for Polk, and then quite a few, two or three future draft picks for a couple offensive linemen as well. And that these two of these were at wide receivers got me questioning what will the Saints' direction be come trade deadline? Like if the Saints are like winless or only have like one win, and are slotted in sole possession of the first overall pick, do the Saints uh, get guys out of here? Get guys out of here like Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, even though we love him because he's been like the best Saints player possibly on the entire team, or at least the best player on defense. Guys like Carl Granderson, see what teams were willing to give for them. So right at this moment, we got a couple drafts here in a row where you only got like 5 picks in them, and for teams that are rebuilding, you think you want to have like 10, 12 picks for a team that's rebuilding. So that seems a little odd, but can't really say what exactly the Saints' direction is there until after the trade deadline, and what their record is by then, and then if they ever decide to give uh, any money to Chris Olave or Rashid Shaheed. And after these first 2 weeks, you guys got guys dropping passes that could win games or change games or even touchdown passes. It's got me wondering if I want to give any money to Chris Olave or Rashid Shaheed, or if it would even be the wisest thing to do. But the Saints are trading. The Saints are definitely not not afraid to trade for players. Let's see. Let's see here in a couple weeks what they'll be doing in regards to trading away players. That's the trade that happened recently, and then during the post game press conference with Kellen Moore, they asked about injuries and stuff, and he said everyone finished the game, so there was nothing to report on. But then, what was it? Monday, I think. Yeah, Monday. It comes out that rookie third-round pick defensive tackle out of Texas, Vernon Broughton, who is like a nose tackle, run stopping defensive tackle, who was wearing 91. Will Smith's 91, which that's why I noticed him at first because he was wearing that 91. But then I kind of started noticing him because he was helping in the run game, and as you've seen in this game where he's gotten the most snaps that he's got this year was in this game. The Saints had one of the best run defensive stopping games that they've had in a couple of years. Feels like 2-3 years that the Saints have had a game where they've held the team under like 100 yards rushing. But yeah, so that's really disappointing. One of your high potential picks, you just can't lose your young guys like that, especially guys that have been drafted through the first 4 rounds, and a third-round pick being specifically brought in to help the run game. And at least from the small sample size that you've got to see of him, it looked like he's helped, and now he's done. Hip injury, IR, done for the season. So that's really backbreaker. And just with the Saints injury luck, they may not be hurt as bad week to week like you have teams that they've faced sometimes, like San Francisco, but it just seems like you're getting nicked and cut every bit as you go along, as the season kind of goes along. But they're they're not always huge losses, but still it just kills you losing guys that are potential. You want to see your young guys get out there and play and be able to see what you have. So losing them and just having losing players to season ending injuries like every week, like having at least once a week, man, it just drains you. Not probably as a team, but as a fan as well. But anyways, that's about all I have for the Saints. Post game on the 26-21 loss to the 49ers, and then just kind of a couple news and notes. The Saints will be playing next week, this next Sunday. Let's see. Next Sunday, the 21st, they're playing the Seattle Seahawks, who are 1-1 and coming off of an impressive win over the Steelers, 31-17. And the Saints are going on the road for the first time this year to Seattle. They have to go deal with 12 and that loud stadium in there. And I guess we'll continue and go on to see what we have for the Saints. It'll be the first time seeing them in a home stadium and see how they can deal with crowd noise. Even though I think a lot of Saints fans, Hoodats, locals, season ticket holders, this is like the last thing I gotta say here, should be embarrassed and offended by the amount of 49er fans that there were at this game. Like it looked like there was at least 50% of the fans were 49ers, if not more. And then at times when the 49ers were making big plays or scoring touchdowns, it sounded in the Superdome as if it was the Saints that were making these plays. So that was disgusting and left me feeling gross in this game as well. But we'll get to see an actual road experience coming up, and that game is I'm happy about this game because it's on the West Coast, and because of that, it being a prime time West Coast game for the Seahawks. The game's not until 3:05 p.m. Central Time, so you'll be able to watch comfortably, you'll be able to watch Thursday night and the early games on Sunday before having to get stressed out and upset or too nervous about the Saints playing Seahawks in the the 3 o'clock window. But we'll get into more of that on the pre-game prediction show and all that. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you. So who dat? And can I get a check, please?